Now, long term, as more data moves into the cloud and as cloud computing becomes more and more pervasive, long term, do you foresee American culture having to move themselves up to the European level of hands-on regulation in this area to protect some of this data? Or rather, somewhat of a slowdown of privacy feeling in Europe and around the world? Not quite to an American model, but much more hands-off. What's it going to turn into, in your mind?
That's a million-dollar question. It's a fantastic question, which I would like to be able to answer, because that would mean that I would have amazing research to publish around. I can say that some of my experiments try to address, I wouldn't say that question because it's such a broad, beautiful but difficult question, but some of my research tries to address, let's say, simplified versions of that question, such as how do people react to privacy invasions? Do they become more sensitive about their data and therefore more careful and more protective, or they react to privacy invasions by becoming less careful because they've been desensitized, almost numbed? And you can see, or it could be also both, right, depending on the condition. And you can see how, if you try to answer this narrow research question, that also brings up then the issue of whether European society is going to become more like American society in terms of privacy perception, need for privacy, or vice versa. So no, we don't have yet the answers, but we do observe apparently a change, if not of attitude, at least in behavior, in that it seems, if you compare the concerns for privacy we had a few years ago, even just 5 years ago, when, for instance, Facebook had just been created, and what kind of concerns we have now, it seems that there has been an evolution, or possibly a devolution, in that things that seemed scary or creepy at the time now have become almost acceptable. And what these tell us about the future in the long run of our privacy sensitivity, I'm not sure. But there is a reason for concern. But there is also opportunity for lots of interesting studies that we do want to do in this area.
Benjamin Franklin, at the time of the American Revolution, said, and of course he said this 18 different ways, based on whatever site I'm looking at to get the quote, those who give up essential liberty to obtain a temporary safety deserve neither. To take this into modern times, and to the crux of a lot of your research, what does this mean for people who give up essential privacy for temporary rewards? Do they deserve privacy or the reward, or either?
I absolutely agree with the version of the statement or the quote you reported, because I strongly disagree with the frame that many try to use to discuss this problem, that in order to have more security you need less privacy. I don't agree with that for a number of reasons. First of all, I feel that a society with less privacy is, in the long run, a less secure society. Second, I believe that we can achieve security through even more information technology while protecting privacy. There has been research at places like Microsoft, as well as Google, as well as in academia, for 20, 30 years in academia, and less so, of course, in the private sector, on privacy-enhancing technologies, so-called PETs, which are technologies which allow some data to be protected while other data to be shared. Exaggerating a little bit, I would say that technologically we already have solved the privacy problem, in the sense that pretty much any conceivable transaction you can think of, payments, browsing, email, authentication, voting, medical data, you can find some bright researcher here in academia, elsewhere, who have found a protocol to allow that transaction to take place while privacy being protected. The big issue then is an economic issue of why these technologies, which are there, they have not been successful in the marketplace. To me, this is a market failure, in the sense that we are stuck in an equilibrium which is suboptimal, where we feel that we need to reveal so much data to make things work, while we don't take full advantage of the technologies which allow for transactions to take place while data being protected. This is the kind of trade-off, rather than trade-off, this is the kind of combination I want. Security and privacy, not security or privacy.
you mentioned a market failure. What would it take to correct that?
So this is also part of my research, right? Because I'm interested from the point of view of both consumer and corporations. What are the reasons why privacy-enhancing technologies, which, as I mentioned, have been around by now for 30 years, why they are not more common? Why so few people use Tor or PGP or anonymous payments? The answer is many reasons. There are reasons on the side of corporations who not always see privacy as a source of competitive advantage. There are problems on the side of governments, which especially after 9/11 in the United States have been more focused on enhancing technologies for data mining, analysis of data, rather than privacy-enhancing technologies. And there are problems on the side of consumer, who often sees only the immediate cost of using the privacy technology and doesn't really see the benefit. If you use privacy-enhancing technologies, they may imply a little cost, such as maybe a delay in the usage of a certain service, or a small cognitive cost, or some minor annoyance. But this minor or small cost is sufficient for most people to dissuade them from using technologies, even though in the long run they could benefit by not being subject to identity theft or other negative usages of data. So how can we change that? Well, we cannot really change human behavior, that would be futile, but we can try to design better policies or better technologies which take into account these biases, going back to where we started our conversation, and try to counter the biases which, in a way, make us do decisions that we later may regret.
Alessandro, I can tell you we definitely don't regret having you here today. So thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed your visit here.
Thank you. My pleasure being here.